Good afternoon, everyone, and hello to everyone in the capital city offices. My name is Philip Wise and I'm the Director of Census Dissemination, and it's a great privilege to welcome you to our fantastic ABS facilities around the country. We've got a very interesting and engaging presentation designed for you today that hopefully will demystify TableBuilder and encourage you to get the maximum value out of this fantastic data product that we make available. Census data has a lot of value that you can get out of it, and I think if you spend a little bit of time, not a lot of time, just a little bit of time getting used to some of the quirks of TableBuilder, I think you'll find it can support a lot of research analysis or policy questions that you might have. So Rebecca Roberts, who's the Assistant Director leading the User Support and Engagement team, will run you through a few slides and some key concepts to think about with census data. And we'll have some time for questions at the end. So take it away, Beck.
Cool. Thank you, and welcome to everyone in our regional offices and in Canberra. So, yep, I lead the User Support and Engagement team, and this was my idea because I really felt that there was a need for people to understand TableBuilder, and we're going to be recording this and adding this to our YouTube channel as well. So it'll make a good reference for future new users of TableBuilder. There's a bit of building work going on outside, so I hope that doesn't interfere with the microphones. So yeah, first of all, I think I'm going to be running through some slides of some things that you need to know before we just jump straight into some examples of TableBuilder. So this tweet was from the day of, sorry, I'll stand over here. This tweet was from the day of 2016 census data release in TableBuilder. And as you can see, after spending 20 minutes trying to figure out how to use Census TableBuilder, I can safely say it is another terrible product. Now, that has 11 likes. So, I mean, there's a few takeaways from this, is that social media is a very cruel place, and that you're not the only person who may be having trouble with TableBuilder. As you can see, there's at least 12 people that have problems, and it is good that we've got more than 20 minutes today to go through and help learn TableBuilder. But I can tell you now that once you do get to use TableBuilder and understand it, that will be your go-to for accessing all census data. So we have this nice, easy-to-use flowchart. So is it in QuickStats? Yes or no? If it is, use QuickStats. If it's not, use TableBuilder. So I think, in general, I would say that I use TableBuilder all the time, but if I'm just trying to share information with someone, sometimes it's easier just to use QuickStats and send them a link. But yeah, there is an exception. Sometimes community profiles are better if you're trying to compare time series information. So community profiles, there's a time series workbook that does compare 2006, 2011 and 2016 data, often in the one page. Sometimes that's a little bit easier to share around with people if you're just trying to get that longitudinal aspect of your census data. So what is Census TableBuilder? Well, first of all, I'll start by saying that we use TableBuilder for outputting a lot of survey data within the ABS, but I'm focusing all on census today. There are a lot of things that you can do in Census TableBuilder that you can also do in Survey TableBuilder, but they aren't completely the same, so just be aware of that. But Census TableBuilder is really just an online self-help tool that allows people to build their own tables using census data. It covers a range of census variables, in fact most of the census variables on the census form, and all geographies that you're able to get from census data. We have 3 versions, so TableBuilder Guest, TableBuilder Basic and TableBuilder Pro. Now TableBuilder Guest is free, you don't have to register, you can just click Open from the Table Builder page and start building your tables. The nice thing about that is that you don't have to register, so you can just use it as much or as little as you want, but you still have access to most of the variables that we offer. Unfortunately, the downside of Guest is that you can't save tables, you can't save custom data, and you can't use you can't go into large table mode, but that is because it's got nowhere to save that. You've got no profile, and that's where Table Builder Basic becomes really good, because you've had to register with your email address. It is able to build a profile for you, and then you can save your tables and save your custom data. Large tables are a function within Table Builder Pro, which you have to pay for. So Table Builder Pro is comes at a cost of $2,350 per year, and it provides data down to the mesh block level, whereas Table Builder Basic provides data down to SA1 level. Table Builder Pro, you can cross-classify people, family and dwelling variables together. We have an extra 5 databases in Table Builder Pro that allow you to do that. So if you're looking for, say, marital status of people who live in 5-bedroom households, you'll need to use Table Builder Pro for that, because that's a people variable and a dwelling variable mixed together. There are 39 more variables available in Table Builder Pro as well. That is mainly because it provides more detail. So in Table Builder Basic, you have more range variables, and in Table Builder Pro you have more actual individual variables available to you. So an example is like a year of arrival. So in year of arrival, that is in 9-year range blocks, so you can only import it by 9-year range blocks, whereas in Table Builder Pro you can get every single year out that you might want. Same with motor vehicles. Motor vehicles comes as like one car in the household, 2 cars in the household, 3 cars in the household, 4 or more. Whereas in Table Builder Pro, you can get anything out up to 30.
How much did you say the fee for Table Builder Pro?
Yeah, the fee for Table Builder Pro is $2,350 per year.
Per organisation?
Oh, okay, per organisation. So I've got someone in the audience from the Microdata Access team. So on your handouts there, we do have how to access, how to get access to Table Builder Pro, and that is by going to the microdata.access.abs.gov.au email address. So regardless of which version you use in Table Builder, we have our mapping and graphing functions available to you as well. But I'll show you that in a little while. So how do we find Table Builder? We go straight to the ABS website. We click on our Census tab at the top, and all of our data products are in the middle panel. Table Builder, you can see, is highlighted in red there. So once you click on that, you will come to the Table Builder page, where you're able to open up Guest, and you are able to log in to Basic or Pro because you have a login account with that. On this page as well, we have a link to the Pro data item list, which you might have picked up on your way in. That is the A3 page with all of the data items and their corresponding data sets. It's a useful thing for you to have at your desk while you're trying to work out which data set you need to open. I do understand it's very small and you need a magnifying glass to be able to read some of the variables, but that's why this link is really useful as well, so you can go back and you can expand it and make it as big as you want. It also contains individual spreadsheets for each of the data sets as well, not just the one that you've got in your hands there. I will also say too that there are some more variables coming out on March 27, so that link, you might want to pay attention to it because the handout you have now doesn't contain those variables, so you might have to go back after March 27 to get those variables. Also on this page we have a bunch of Table Builder tutorials. I've kind of cut it off on the bottom there, but we have tutorials on large tables, custom data, maps and graphs, as well as some basics that I'll show you shortly. And we're also going to be doing another tutorial on the differences between Pro, Basic and Guest. So don't feel like you need to just remember everything I'm talking about now. We will be updating these tutorials in the next few days with 2016 census data as well, so they are very current. Also at the bottom is our TableBuilder user guide. So that is a really handy reference and step-by-step instructions on how to do everything in TableBuilder. So before we get started, we think it's important that you understand a little bit about geography. Because you need to, essentially the census is a geographical exercise. We go around Australia to collect all the data, but then we also disseminate that data for Australia, for Australians, I guess. So I will start with this very complicated diagram, and this is also in your handout pack as well. It's the Australian Statistical Geography Standard, the ASGS. We use this all the time. So basically it's just a standard for dividing Australia up into smaller areas for outputting data. We kind of think about it as a jigsaw puzzle, kind of like using a jigsaw puzzle to break up Australia into different size pieces. So all of these boxes here are just different structures for breaking Australia up, and some of them are very detailed, so mesh blocks. There's like hundreds of thousands of mesh blocks in Australia, and with states there's like 7 or 9, I think. Yeah, I should have probably read that a bit better before I said it. Yeah, so you can see here that we've got on the left-hand side in the lighter grey ABS structures and non-ABS structures in the darker grey. So the ABS structures are the ones that are defined by us. So they are even in size, so that makes them very comparable when you're trying to compare so one SA1 with another SA1, so one group of people with another group of people. They also don't change very often, so I think maybe every 5 years they get updated, and they are very stable. But the ones on the right-hand side, which are the non-ABS structures, are the ones that are probably a little bit more familiar to you and your clients. So LGAs, postcodes, suburbs, they might make a little bit more, give your story a little bit more meaning, I guess, when you're trying to share census data. So this just shows it a little bit more clearer, I guess, so the differences in boundaries. So we've got our LGA in the yellow, our SA3s in the blue, our state electoral divisions in the red, and our SA2s in the green. So you can kind of see that they are kind of built up from each other in some ways. Certainly on your ASGS map where there's lines, you can see that they do correspond to each other. So another nice way of understanding geography is by using ABS maps, and that can be found on the ABS footer under Statistical Geography, which I've highlighted there. Once you click into that, you can play around with it yourself, and you can add in a couple of different boundaries and just compare the size, compare what the location of where one might be versus another. There's also a handy little search tool which is here. I suggest you just go back to your office and have a bit of a play, and if you have any trouble then you can always contact us later. But I guess for a little bit more information, we've also got the Census Geography Basics page, which is also found on our Census landing page too. It just describes some of the popular types of geographies that people use for census data, and it has a nice series of links that will help you. So yeah, there's plenty of information about geography out there. You just got to read it and just got to understand it, but if there's any problems you can always come and ask us. So now that we have a bit of an understanding of geography, we're on to classifications. So classifications are just defined as the range of values for a given variable. but we often use classification, data item, variables kind of interchangeably when we're talking about census data anyway. So just start with some simple classifications. These are just classifications that the census responses are coded to. So you can see here that there's only a few options for sex, Indigenous status, tenure type, as well as the other ones up on the screen. And if a response sits outside of those codes, then we decide whether or not it fits within not stated or not applicable. But next we have hierarchical classifications, which can be a little bit more complicated. For example, this is what a question looks like on the census form around country of birth. So say, for example, my country of birth is El Salvador. I will put that into the other category there, and then El Salvador is coded and scanned, and it will be put into the appropriate category of El Salvador. But El Salvador is like a category of a broader group, which is Central America. And so with census data, this person, myself, is a person who is a member of the El Salvador group and also Central America. But Central America is also part of the Americas. So you can see where I'm going with this. We've got various levels of detail of census data for some of those really complex questions on the census forms that have a lot of categories. Now, this is the standard Australian classification of countries, and we do have a lot of standards for hierarchical classifications that come from our standards area in the ABS. They're not just used for census, they're also used for other ABS publications, and not just used for Australian statistical organisations, they're used outside of Australia as well. So if I go back a little bit, so this you'll see in TableBuilder when we get there that we have 1-digit, 2-digit and 3-digit and sometimes 4-digit options to select from in TableBuilder. The Americas would be 1-digit, this would be 2-digit, this would be 3-digit, so as you're kind of drilling down in through the categories. So we've got hierarchical classifications for field of study, religion, we've got industry, education, language, so some of those really kind of complex questions that have a lot of categories is how we structure that. But don't feel like you need to know all this off the top of your head. We have the ABS, we have the Census Dictionary, which goes into all of these classifications. And we have a lot of information about the responses, the categories, who it's applicable to, as well as if that classification comes from somewhere else. So not only is the Census Dictionary available to us, and it's on the Census homepage as one of the main links, we also have Understanding the Census and Census Data publication, which talks about how we collected the census information, turning the information into census data, so how we've coded it. We've also got a lot of information about non-response rates, the usage of the paper form versus the online form. We've also got these really handy data summary sheets, so for each variable listed on that big sheet, we have data summary information about how the variable was created, the variable history, individual non-response rates. So if you're in the data and you're like, how do I know how many people have answered this question? Well, this publication kind of supplements that and helps you. It also has some data usage notes as well, so if there's some gotchas around some things that you need to know with a particular category, then that will be in this publication under those data usage notes. So next we're on to choosing the right data set. So when you open up TableBuilder, you will come straight into this page. I'm sure some of you might have tried to come into this page and thought, oh, it's too hard. But that's what we're here for. So over the right-hand side, we have a bunch of links. So So the user guide link, if I just use my mouse, the link to the user guide and the tutorials, as I've said. We've also got our data item list somewhere in here. Here we go. And we scroll down further, we have links to ABS maps and the Census Dictionary too. So yeah, there's plenty of information, and there's always a lot of different ways to be able to get to those very key publications. Over the left-hand side, if we just expand out the data sets, you'll see that we've got basic data sets and our TableBuilder Pro Datasets. So our basic data sets are more topic-based. So you see cultural diversity, employment and income, internal migration. They're housing the people variables that you'll see. And then we've got dwelling and family characteristics. But like I said before, if you want to cross-classify family, dwelling and people variables, then that's when the TableBuilder Pro Datasets come into play, where you can get all of this information together for usual residence and place of enumeration data as well. So, census data isn't just for public servants to make policy decisions. We've heard of stories where people use census data to convince their brother to move to an area because of all the single females in an area. And also, like people who are setting up small businesses, they might want to find out how many plumbers there are in an area before they go and move to that area. So it's not just for policy decisions, but I do understand my audience, so we will move on to an example of what is the cultural diversity of voters in Melbourne. So coming back to our flowchart, we have, is it available in QuickStats, or do we need to use Census TableBuilder? So if we look at our QuickStats for the Commonwealth Electoral Division of Melbourne, we can see that there are 208,000 people in this Commonwealth Electoral Division. And if we go into the country of birth section of that QuickStat, we can scroll down and we can actually see the top 5 places where people were born who live in that electoral division. Now I will just point out, we've got China here as 9.9% and Vietnam as 2.4%. So using this QuickStat, if I was a politician, I'd immediately go, right, we have 4 times more Chinese-born people in our Melbourne Commonwealth Electoral Division as we do with Vietnamese. So I should go and invest all my money and time targeting those people to build my votes, right? So just keep that question in mind. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into TableBuilder. So what we're going to do is we're going to expand out our 2016 data sets, and we're just going to go into basic today and choose cultural diversity. If we click on this, we can see our a couple of predefined tables, which we can select and just open up, and we can still drag and drop, and we can still turn things into percentages, and we can still do whatever we want with that. But for now, I'm just going to double click on here, which is the cheats way, or I could open up new table for cultural diversity. So I'm just going to cheat because I'm good at it now. So, as always, we start with our geographical area. So if we don't select a geographical area, we're just going to get all of Australia. So our question is around cultural diversity of the Commonwealth electoral divisions in Melbourne. So I'm going to go to electoral divisions, and I'm going to expand out Commonwealth electoral division, and I'm going to look for Victoria. I'm going to scroll all the way down and look for Melbourne. So I'm just going to tick on Melbourne because that's all I care about at the moment. And I'm going to choose Add to Column. So because I'm over here and I'm only looking at one, I don't really need a total. So I'm just going to get rid of the total by using this little icon. And I've got no numbers here yet, so I'm going to retrieve the data. And you can see that there is 208,588 people, just as we saw in that QuickStat. So now what I care about is my country of birth classification. So I'm just going to collapse this up just so it doesn't cloud the example. So if I look for country of birth under selected person characteristics, and here I've found it, country of birth of person, I can expand out all these, which I'm not going to, I can tick every single one of these on if I want, which I'd be here forever, or I could just use this right arrow over here, and I'm going to choose the 4-digit because I want the most detail I can get. So I choose 4-digit. It's come up here as 292 items selected, so I'm glad I didn't tick it all down. If you accidentally tick something and it's giving you grief, there's always this option here for untick all. So sometimes it doesn't let you bring in things if they're ticked outside of that category, so keep that in mind as well. So for now, I've got this all ticked on. I'm going to choose Add to Row. And when we go and add more data to the table, we need to retrieve it again from the server. So you can see I've just got all this data and I've got a bunch of zeros. I don't care about the zeros. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to choose zero suppression to get rid of all of the zeros. And I'm going to choose it by column because I want them out of my column. Is it doing it? Zero suppression, but oh no, I'm going to choose it by rows, sorry. So now I've got it here, it's all jumbled up and it's all out of order. So I can choose to sort it. It always chooses it by lowest to highest first, so I just click it again and then it's going to give it to me in descending order. So we can see we've got 20,000 people born in Chinese in our electoral area and 5,000 from Vietnam. But I want it as a percentage. So now I can go options percentage, not by row. See, if you just make a mistake, you just click it again until you get it right.
Can you get both, like number and percentage?
No, you have to choose. Yeah, because if you have a look at the options here, percentages, you've got none here as well. So you can, sorry, that was for the question, the question was can you get both percentages and numbers, but no, you can't. You have to make a choice between one or the other. So I am just going to leave it as my percentages here. And so this comes back to our quick stat here. So we've replicated our quick stat with 9.9% people from China who were born in China versus 2.4% who were born in Vietnam. So as a politician, coming back to our example, only people who are over 18 can vote. So this is where our age becomes important. So we will add in over 18-year-olds, and this is where TableBuilder becomes really important because this data is not available in any other product. It's only available in TableBuilder. So what I do here is I open up my age classification and I select 18 because we have to be over 18 to vote. And I'm just going to go to the bottom because I don't want to tick all those. I'm just going to press Shift and highlight it all for me. And then I'm going to use Add It to Wafer. I'll show you what wafer is. So I'll retrieve the data first so then I can explain it. So say I only care about the 18-year-olds, I've got that here. Say I only care about the 22-year-olds, I've got that here. But for me now, I care about the total. And that is the only way I can get the total is by choosing it as a wafer because it doesn't go and add it all up for me to go and put it into a filter. I can choose it as a wafer and then use the total. I'll also say too that we can download the tables to Excel. So there's a bunch of file formats here as well. When I do a wafer, it saves it as different tabs across the bottom and then gives me my rows and columns in each of the pages. So there's plenty of options there. So back to our example, we have now 10% of people born in China in our area, and 2% born in Vietnam. So there's another thing that is important for voters, is that you need to be an Australian citizen to vote. So we also have this, the Australian Citizen CITP variable. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to click in Australian, and we're going to filter that, which means we're going to add it to our table without actually putting it in a row or a column or a wafer. It just means that we are adding it here. If we don't want it, we can press the tick. If we don't want any of these things, we can drag them into the trash. So because we've just added a new variable, once again, we'll go and retrieve our data. And it's probably unsorted it, so I'm just going to sort it again. And I know you're looking at all those zeros thinking, why has she got zeros when she suppressed the zeros? Well, they have just been rounded down. So coming back to our example, we now have 2% born in China and 3% born in Vietnam. So if I was a politician, investing four times my time and money targeting the Chinese community, well, that's wasted money. So now I've just saved myself the hassle. So when we're finished, we can clear the table, and it asks you, do you want to save it? Well, I don't want to save it, but if I did want to save it, I could just choose Save Table with that icon. Oh, I hit no. And then we're back to the beginning. Yep. Yeah, so the question was, how do you decide if it's a row or a column or a wafer or a filter? You just play around with it. There's really no, there's nothing that you can do that's going to break it. You can just chuck it in the trash and start again. So it's really just a matter of preference. But at the same time, you might want to export it, and someone might come back and say, oh, what does this mean? Then you sit back and you go, oh yeah, what does it mean? Oh, maybe I need to just find a different way to tell the same story. So I guess we're on to our second example here before I take some questions. So we're talking about Gungahlin today, so I'm sorry for our regional participants here, but I'm sure you've got areas in your capital city that have very strong growth rates, and so just think about those areas who might have a lot of variation in population and age demographics. So right after the census, it was reported that Gungahlin was one of the fastest growing places in Australia, and that growth was driven by families. So when we look at quick stats, we can see, well, that is true. Looking at 2011, you can see 47,000 people in Gungahlin, and that has grown in 5 years to 71,000. So this is where the growth comes from. But it's worthwhile checking in TableBuilder to decide, is Gungahlin actually full of young families, as people often say? So I'll switch back into TableBuilder. I've already cleared up. So like before, we start with our geographical areas. So we're going to go to ACT, and this is where our main ASGS comes in handy, and this is where your handouts come in handy as well, so you can understand the kind of classification, the geography that you'd be after. We're going to the Australian Capital Territory. So if you think about it, this is the state level, this is the SA4 level. Oh, sorry, this one's the SA4 level, this one's the SA3 level. So I'm going to compare now how Gungahlin, or how I'm going to show you now how Gungahlin compares with, say, Belconnen, North Canberra, South Canberra, Tuggeranong, Western Creek and Woden Valley. I'm a local. I know that there's no one in Canberra East or Molonglo or Namadgi, so I'm just not going to select those on. So I'll click Add to Row. And before I go and populate the data, I want to know about age, because I'm trying to work out what the age demographics is and if it's really driven by young families. So I'm going to choose age in 5-year groups, because I will end up with way too much data if I choose individual ages. So once again, I'll click on what I want here. I might just click on this guy. I won't go all the way down, otherwise it's going to expand the screen out too far and you won't get the gist of what I'm trying to say. And I'll add this one to column. I'll turn it into a percentage because, oh no I won't, I'll retrieve the data first. And then I'll turn it into a percentage. Do I turn it in by row or column? I think it's meant to. We'll see what that looks like anyway. Once again, you just play around with it and you just work out what you want to do. What I want to do here now though is I want to graph it. So I'm going to click into Graph View, and we can see the graph this way, but I think it's going to tell a story better if I use a line graph. It's kind of hard to see it there because I've got so many things, but you'll get the message in a minute. So we can see for Canberra, there's this little peak. If we follow this green line, that says to me there's a lot of 20 to 24-year-olds in North Canberra, which is where we have a university in Canberra. So that's no surprise there. But the thing that I wanted to highlight to you is the Gungahlin. It's kind of hard with the mouse. Is the Gungahlin is this green line here. So it's going down and down and down, which means that we've got a lot less 24-year-olds, and it's going up and up and up, which means that we've got a lot more 35 to 39-year-olds. And then we're petering off a bit low as the demographics age a little bit. So by having a lot more 4-year-olds, 0 to 4-year-olds, and a lot more 30 to 34-year-olds, we can see that that's probably the kids and their parents. So that's the Gungahlin trend compared to other areas in Canberra. You can see that the others are kind of flat, which means that there's not much difference in each of the age groups. So now what I'm going to show you is how that varies within Gungahlin itself. So I'm coming out of here, I'm going to change my geography. So I'm going to jump back into geography, and I've got these things selected here already. It knows they're in my table. I don't want them anymore, so I'm going to put my SA3 just in the trash and see how I've got nothing now. So now I want to go into Gungahlin, and I want to click out some of the suburbs that I know are going to tell a good story. So I know that Amaroo, Nichols, Palmerston, Ngunnawal, those suburbs have been around in Gungahlin for 20 years or so. So I'm going to add those because I want to see what those suburbs look like. And then I also know that Casey, Crace and Ford, Franklin as well if I want. I'm probably going to cloud it a bit much. And Moncrief, they're the really new suburbs. So I'm going to add those to my row. And like before, retrieve the data. Now I'm going to switch into the graph view. And I like my lines, so I'll go back to the lines. And you can see they're all kind of following that same little pattern. But if I show, I'll go back to this way. You can see that they are kind of following that pattern. Moncrief has what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to go to this one, because it's got my ages. So you can see that there's a bit of a dip around the 25 to 29-year-olds in Ngunnawal, but it's really hard to read. Do you all agree with that? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a custom geography to kind of split out between Old Gungahlin and New Gungahlin, because then it's only going to give me 2 lines, and then I can read it a bit better. So I'll jump back into table, and rather than spend a bit of time creating a custom geography, you can look at a 3-minute video on the tutorial page to go and create your own custom geography. But really, here they are here. So I'm going to get rid of my SA2s, and I'm going to add these guys in, and I'll add them to row. And I'll get rid of my total. I don't care about my total in here. And so I'm going to retrieve the data and go into graph view. Go back to my line view by column. And so here you can see the difference between old Gungahlin and new Gungahlin. Original Gungahlin, I should say, rather than old. So you can see that, yes, the drive is really, or the change in demographics is really driven by new Gungahlin here. There's a lot more parents and a lot more younger kids. So this kind of information you wouldn't get anywhere else other than TableBuilder. Oh. So I think we've proven yes. So just before we head off, I will say that we are about to have another release of census data on the 27th of March. So we'll be bringing in CFA, commuting distance variables and remoteness variables into TableBuilder on the 27th of March. And so you'll be able to do a bit more mining of more data within TableBuilder. After that, we'll have some more analytical articles, some geo packages and some confidentialised unit record files. The geo packages, I think, mid-April, and those other articles are coming through right through to the end of June. And if you're looking at all the data and you're thinking, oh, I wish there was a different question in the census, this is where our 2021 census topic consultation comes in play. We'll be launching that on the 3rd of April with a webcast on the 5th of April. So you can just go to the ABS website. There is a link at the bottom of the census page where you can get involved in the topic consultation. And for more information, so you might have gotten a handout as you walked in that just has a bit more information on that. But if there's any questions about today's session, if there's general questions about today's session, you're more than welcome to ask them now. But if you've got specific questions, feel free to email my team on census.data@abs.gov.au. If you want formal on-site training for your location, we do have our customised and microdata access team who go to your site at a cost of $1,960 for half a day, and you can request that by emailing microdata.access.abs@abs.gov.au. and any other information about ABS products or request for data, you can contact our National Information Referral Service and Information Consultancy. There's a phone number there, but then there's also a link to the online form on the footer of the